thank you so much everyone for joining us for what I think will be a really interesting panel discussion, and actually about a topic that we've not really talked about in much detail as well. So delighted to be joined by three esteemed industry experts as well. For those who don't know me, my name's Jason Pritchard. I'm the executive editor of eVTOL Insights, one of the news sources covering the global advanced air mobility market as well. So a huge thank you to the team at AtkinsRealis for allowing me to moderate this discussion as well. I'm joined by JC Asencio from Wisk, James Richmond from AtkinsRealis, and Addison Ferrell from Skyports as well. So, as I said, the human element in advanced air mobility, really important topic about accessibility, but also really about the skills, the training to build the workforce that we want to see it happen. And we all want advanced air mobility to be the reality we want it to be as well. So if I don't mind, we'll start off just by introducing a little bit more about the three individuals here as well and their role within their respected companies as well. So JC, I'll start with you. Great to have you with us. JC looking very fresh after a manic travel schedule, but thank you so much for joining us for today as well. Are you able to share a little bit more then about your role within Wisk, and then we'll go through to James and Addison before we begin into the human element side of it. So JC, over to you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm JC. At Wisk, I'm an ecosystem partnerships manager. What that means is essentially if our aircraft's certified tomorrow, where's it going to land? How's it going to charge? Is the public going to freak out when they see something in the air? These are all the different pieces we have to make sure are put together before any of these aircraft are certified to operate. And that's kind of what I work and lead on the East Coast of the U.S. I am a recovering engineer. Used to do that. And just so you know a little bit about Wisk, Wisk, we are a subsidiary of Boeing, and we're developing an all-electric autonomous aircraft for 4 seats. So, yeah.
I'll take that from you, JC. I think that's the plan. Hopefully you can hear me. Good afternoon, everybody. Very nice to have you here. I'm James Richmond. I'm Head of Advanced Air Mobility at AtkinsRealis. AtkinsRealis is a global professional services organisation, predominantly in the design engineering space and project management. We are around 35,000 employees globally. And operating in the sectors of transportation, city infrastructure and energy. We have decades of experience in aviation, and that is from ranging from the vehicle and working with the likes of Airbus for decades in developing their wings, their landing gear, their engines, and getting them on the path to certification, and also our work in airports, where we've been working with some of the largest airports in the world, whether that be landside, airside, or integrating the technology within. And we're really bringing all of those skills to bear and that sector experience into this new market of advanced air mobility, and working with vehicle OEMs, airports, cities and regions, regulators and investors. So.
Perfect. James, thank you. And last but no means, Addison.
Hi all, Addison Ferrell. I'm the Director of Infrastructure for Skyports, so I lead our vertiport development business globally. Skyports, we are the provider of infrastructure for advanced air mobility, so that spans the whole value chain from site selection to development and then operations on an ongoing basis. We have people, we're headquartered here in London, and we have people around the world located in the US like myself, as well as the Middle East and Asia Pacific as well. Particularly excited about this panel because I work with both JC and James as Skyports collaborates with both Wisk and Atkins.
Excellent, and thank you very much for the introductions, gentlemen. And Addison, if I could stick with you, if you don't mind, sort of getting really stuck into the significance of addressing the human element in air travel, that seamless infrastructure side of things as well. Are you able to sort of share your thoughts from an infrastructure perspective? James, I know that AtkinsRealis has done very much core research groups, and JC, you'd love to hear it from an OEM perspective. As we know, Wisk has done also an incredible amount of work about the user and the accessibility side of it as well. So Addison, if you're able to kind of intro and talk a bit more about the human element from an infrastructure side, and then we'll hear the thoughts of James and JC afterwards as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we think about the whole passenger journey that someone will be taking, a pretty considerable portion of that will be with the ground infrastructure in the vertiport, whether the departing or arriving vertiport. So of course, if the passenger is going to have an experience that is safe, efficient, and enjoyable, it needs to be that way at the vertiports as well. So that's something that's very important to us. We work with OEMs, we work with operators to make sure that the concept of operations for the passenger in the terminal and at the vertiport is one that is those three things, as mentioned: safe, efficient, and enjoyable for them. And that's really important for us. We're not trying to create an environment where they are forced to linger for a long period of time. We want them to be able to move through the facility quickly so that they can get on their way, get on the journey, and ultimately achieve the mission of saving time. But we do want it to be a place where if they do choose to stay, if they do come early, it is one that is welcoming to them.
Excellent. Thanks ever so much for that, Addison. And James, again, you're able to share a little bit more. We've had many conversations about the human element, and we mentioned those core research groups that AtkinsRealis has studied and done. And for those, a little bit of a shameless plug, there will be a podcast where we're talking a little bit more detail about this and in the coming weeks. But James, if you could just introduce to the audience as well a bit more about this research.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. And I guess building on what Addison said there, obviously we care about an enjoyable passenger experience, but one of the key things for us is making an accessible passenger experience. And I think we're lucky from an AtkinsRealis perspective in that we are agnostic to the different bits of the ecosystem. We work to integrate the vehicle with the infrastructure and the end-to-end passenger journey. And really what we are advocating for is across that journey from the moment you book your ticket to when you depart the aircraft, ensuring that is open to as many people as possible. And the Advanced Air Mobility Ecosystem Project, which we run through the Future Flight Challenge, has given a vehicle for us to actually, we assembled a group of disability advocates in the UK, people representing all types of disability, whether that's physical, mental, disabilities that they had, and we used the opportunity to canvass the individuals, inform them about advanced air mobility, walk them through a hypothetical journey, and get their feedback, to the point where we've then used that to design some of the technology that is going to be in a vertiport and get that real feedback and learning. I think in the UK, roughly 1 in 5 people are classified with a disability, whether that be permanent or not. So there's a good chance that, even if you're not disabled now, you may be in the future, you may have an injury, and really it's about ensuring an accessible journey for all. For us.
Thanks ever so much, James, and we'll touch upon those topics during the rest of the discussion as well. But JC, again, as you said at the start, Wisk has been brilliant in terms of telling people a bit more about the accessibility side of it as well. So are you able to share your thoughts again from the human element, from an eVTOL OEM?
Yeah, definitely. So for a company that's focused on autonomy first, we're also very human-centric. Our mission statement is safe everyday flight for everyone. And the key word I want you to focus on there is everyone. We really focus the design of our aircraft, and our product design team does such a fantastic job to make sure that it feels welcoming and that it supports people of, the 95th percentile, and that we support people of all abilities in the aircraft journey there. We work with consulting companies as well, and bring in focus groups from people from various backgrounds to different cabin mock-ups that have led us to the design that we have now with our Generation 6, to make sure it was a very human-centric, human-focused, thoughtful design. And, I love whenever we show our Generation 6 aircraft to people and they just notice all these small details that are important to groups that you would never think, right? Whether it be somebody who is deaf and, our remote hospitality crew has like an ASL feature, or somebody with color blindness and there's features for that, or the fact that our seats can be switched out to then have a wheelchair be put on board instead of the seat. So.
Excellent. Thanks ever so much for that, Jason. If I could keep with you, if you don't mind as well, because I'd love to talk about kind of the workforce side of things as well. And I know that an interesting conversation we had before the panel was about the skilled workforce to operate the autonomous aircraft. So again, there's fear in the eyes when autonomous aircraft, well, how is it going to be managed? But there's a dedicated, the command and control center at the bottom as well, on the ground, sorry. So are you able to share a little bit more on the workforce side of things? Again, what Wisk has been doing with that, how important that is as we build out the industry as a whole. And then James and Addison, we'd love to hear your thoughts on the workforce side of things too. So JC, if you're able to start us off, please.
Yeah, definitely. I'll start with the bigger side of the question, which is the pilot side. So it is autonomous, but our concept is to have a multi-vehicle supervisor on the ground that is supervising multiple aircraft. And so autonomy doesn't mean, right, an AI or machine learning. It's more of automation. Our CEO said it best in a podcast one time. It's more like a tram in the sky that has a set destination for its nominal cases, and it's also set destinations and routes for any of the contingencies. And so for the pilot side, I mean, we're working with the FAA and NASA and other standards organizations to determine what would that training be, and who would those partners be to train up those multi-vehicle supervisors. And we're looking for it to be less than what it would be required to be a pilot, because you're remotely supervising these aircraft. The other side of the workforce development is everything on the ground. When we work, within Skyports or Atkins, with some infrastructure on the ground for, our mechanics are going to have experience with high voltage systems. That's going to be something that's new, right? We're going to need more ground crew. We're going to try to get, higher throughput for these systems to turn around the aircraft. People in the hospitality crew. I really think it just opens a whole new field of aviation workforce. And, it's been great going on this journey so far with our partners, identifying what these roles are, but then also working with universities and some of these other schools outside of those 4-year degree programs to then see how can their programs adapt to the innovation happening in aviation.
Excellent. Thank you ever so much for that, JC. And it touches upon a point also we made on the pre-panel call about the potential for more people to enter aviation, without college degrees, unlocking that barrier to entry as well. So, James, if you were to sort of add on to what JC has said, and would welcome your thoughts on the workforce too, please.
I'll pick up on what JC says. I think that it's almost a paradoxical, I think, answer to this question with respect to skills and workforce, because yes, it will create opportunity for a lot of people because we've got a new transport mode to facilitate, and that's great. I think there's also an element of realism in that may be a struggle. We are already facing a skills challenge in the UK and globally. And I believe, therefore, we should be looking to technology-enabled solutions where possible, and almost analogous to what JC was talking about in terms of remotely operated vehicles. I think there's a space in the ground infrastructure and in maintenance, repair and overhaul facilities to be almost having that 1 to 5 model also, in terms of could there be a virtual element to the maintenance in which there's a command and control center, looking for technology to allow us to scale those challenges, as opposed to it being a pure horsepower and people issue. So yeah, I'd love to see more technology come into the field to help with that skills challenge.
Excellent. James, thank you ever so much for that. And Addison, love to hear your thoughts on the workforce, also for the ground crew side of things, because it takes a village, as it does the whole industry, for the infrastructure side of things as well. And it's also great with the announcement with Wisk and Skyports in Brisbane, Oz, that was announced on yesterday, day 1 of the air show. So are you able to sort of touch upon the ground crew and how important that is from a workforce perspective? And if possible, touch upon these really important announcements that Skyports is now starting to build, again, Australia, but also we know Skyports is very active in the Middle East as well, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. The staff in the vertiport itself will be important, will be necessary in order for it to operate well. And as we look at the cost model that we put together, the staffing is most likely going to be the highest cost, at least operational cost for a vertiport, even if we're talking about a pretty slimmed down staff that's just trying to do the basics. There are certain specialized skill sets, such as firefighting, that will be required, in particular if you think about firefighting electric vehicle fires, which is new and novel and still really being developed in terms of what are the protocols and procedures. So there's certainly some specialized skill sets. I think what's interesting too is, yes, we can think about the AAM industry in isolation. There's some skill sets that will need to be developed, but it's part of the broader aviation industry as well. And so there's opportunity for it to be an interesting pipeline into larger aviation, or conventional aviation, I should say, as an example. And then equally too, now that we're bringing in the electric side of things, there's the electric ground vehicles that can kind of be a pipeline in as well. So a lot to be determined, obviously. Fortunately for this topic, it's not going to be a big boom rollout. We think there's going to be a crawl, walk, run of the industry. So there's going to be time to sort of learn on the go, learn on the job. Nonetheless, some of the work we're doing now, like what we're doing with Wisk in Australia, is to map out, in the case of an autonomous operation, that doesn't mean there are no people involved, as JC was saying. What are those roles? What's the concept of operations, and what are the skill sets that will be required for those roles?
Excellent. Thanks ever so much for that, Addison, as well. And then again, we've talked about the workforce, we've talked about the training. Love to touch upon like the community engagement as well. Getting people involved into the, get them excited about the industry as well. And again, I know all three companies have done some great work with that side of things. So, Addison, if I could just keep with you, if you don't mind, and again, we'll hear from James and JC too about the community engagement, but the education side of things. Without shame, I know Chris, my colleague, is bangs the drum for the education side of things. But are you able to share again your thoughts on that community engagement, encompassing it with the human element, and that we want to make this advanced air mobility accessible to everyone, as JC was saying too. Again, love to hear your thoughts on that side, please.
Yeah, I mean, I think our setting is actually fantastic to illustrate this. Especially when the fighter jets were flying, you step outside and everyone stops. They look and they watch it, and they're fascinated by it. Everyone has a fascination naturally with humans flying. It's the same with this industry, in that there's no substitute for seeing these aircraft actually fly, for seeing what the vertiport facility will actually look like, even in advance of booking the ticket yourself and going on it, but to see something physical in the flesh, it actually happening, and not actually hearing it because it's so quiet, which would be such a massive unlock. So all of those things will just be incredibly powerful relative to what we can do absent that. I mean, we should still do other things with respect to videos and education and explanations, but it's those real tangible demonstrations that we think move the needle the most. So for our part, from Skyports' point of view, or for what we do have multiple test beds around the world, and there are opportunities for demonstrations. One in the U.S. in California, one outside of Paris in Cergy, and then one that we are working on together alongside Atkins as part of the Future Flight Challenge. So all of those, in addition to kind of testing some of the technical bits, they're really great demonstration opportunities to show the public what this is going to actually be like, and that's what we think is going to be really the most impactful.
Awesome. Thanks ever so much for that, Addison. And James, just add on to the community engagement side, and you touch upon what Atkins is doing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So as Addison referenced, we've got our living lab, which we hope to be launching with Skyports and our AMEC partners later this year. And I can see Bista in the room as well. So we're very excited about that. And as Addison said, it's much more than about the flying. The flying is obviously really important, and that's going to be very exciting. But we can't wait to engage public and passengers as part of that demonstration. So that's one way to address the community engagement. The other is looking to, I think, what is more mature in one sense in terms of different use cases of advanced air mobility, and looking to what's happening in the small drone market. And I know Skyports are obviously active in the space, and I think one unlock for community engagement is looking for those drones for good, as it were, use cases. We touched on that this morning on an earlier panel in terms of medical delivery, vaccines in remote areas. We're both part of a project actually in Scotland, Project Calis, which is looking to do just that between NHS hospitals and the Outer Hebrides Islands in Scotland. So I think all of that, coupled with maybe police use cases, etc., will bring the public along on that journey. So when advanced air mobility is here in a passenger sense, that the public are ready and they've engaged with similar systems.
Excellent. Thanks ever so much for that, James. And JC, if you don't mind me asking, with also touching upon the community engagement side, but also the importance of that accessibility and exclusivity in air taxi design. I know Wisk has done some great work with associations in the US to get them in front of Gen 6 or the aircraft that you're building and actually see for themselves and see if they can get onto the aircraft as well. So are you able to, from the unique perspective in this panel, touch upon that importance of the work that Wisk is doing from a community engagement, but also that accessibility from a design perspective as well?
Yeah, definitely. So I really agree with everything they said. And then also 3 different areas of the community engagement, right? There's conferences like these of industry engagement and really educating the rest of industry on what's going on with AAM, because, right, this is just one piece of the whole aviation industry that we're advancing in. But then the next piece is really working with government entities. And so that's been wildly successful in the last couple of years, making sure that we work to educate the state DOTs so that they can be champions for AAM. Some of the state DOTs in the U.S. have now someone in their aviation department dedicated to advanced air mobility, and now they've actually formed a AAM multi-state collaborative of 27 states to really harmonize on policy and infrastructure plans for the whole country. And so then you see some states mechanizing this with us as partners to, hey, now we've educated the state legislature, let's go to all the different districts in our state and start educating the local officials. And so it's really good to be able to work with public partners, and Skyports has been there, Atkins, some of the other OEMs to educate the public on that side. And the last piece is kind of the general public, which is, we flew in Long Beach last year, and I think one of my favorite moments of that demonstration was seeing a kid go, that plane just did a 360, what? Planes don't fly like that, right? And really, educating the youth, getting it more involved in the schools and museums. I mean, that then the kids get inspired to then maybe study something like STEM. And then on top of that, they then bring that conversation back to their household, and then maybe their parents start looking into it, their families start looking into it. So it's really multifaceted. It's a work in progress, but it's been great working with the whole industry and with public governments to get this rolling.
Perfect. Thanks ever so much for that, JC. I don't know how we're doing for time, James, but I don't know if we want, very happy to have some questions from the audience if they would like to ask any questions to James, JC or Addison. Yep. I don't know how we're going to do it with the mic. If you want to just come up and I can give you the mic. No.
Francis Walker with Corrigan Architects. So I'm really interested in what you guys think, taking the UK as an example of what the optimum scale of a network could be. And can you get the business case, the demand, the technology and the logistics aligned?
Addison, probably best to start.
Yeah, listen, it's a good question. I think my first answer is we don't quite know yet. We have a hypothesis, and of course we have a business model and an investment case for why we as Skyports do what we do. Why do we develop the infrastructure in the first place if we thought there could only be 1 or 2 vertiports per market? Would it even make sense? So at that level, yes, we have a belief for what creates like sort of a scaled network in a city of maybe, let's call it like 5 vertiports. That said, we actually think it's going to be a somewhat organic development or organic growth. You have to start with some critical mass, of course. Let's say it's like 5 vertiports in a big city like London or like Dubai where we're developing. But then beyond that kind of crawl, walk, run, or that organic growth, the proof of demand, all of those things will help influence, where the network grows from there. In the same way, the aircraft are not going to enter the market in a big bang approach. I don't think, I'm very certain actually that you won't have hundreds of aircraft that are in inventory and just waiting for them to turn on and start flying. They'll enter the market somewhat gradually as well. So the supply of aircraft, the supply of the infrastructure will kind of be building over time, and you'll see somewhat of an organic growth, and then we'll eventually, I think sometime far into the future, reach a point of saturation where yes, the business model has been proven out. People are able to move quite freely in a new way, and they have a number of options for how they can travel. But again, I guess the underlying point is it will play out over a period of time.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I was going to say, did anyone have anything to add on to what Addison has said? Thank you, JC.
Yeah, I want to fully agree, and I think it all falls down to passenger throughput on top of that too. So really, market by market, they're all going to have their own total addressable market, their own points. They're going to have that demand, and I think the best part is we have so much data nowadays compared to before, to where we can really see where are those demand nodes, and then work with partners like Skyports to then say, hey, does this make sense to build a vertiport, or does it make sense to build a vertiport on this existing airport to then serve the community around it? So.
Excellent. James, did you have any other points onto that?
Just one point, and I guess it comes back to Addison's kind of crawl, walk, run approach, and I don't think we should be viewing the market as a panacea, as it were. There's going to be different use cases within passenger eVTOLs, and some of it is going to be pure substitution of helicopters. And I think it'll be important to start there. I was recently engaging a local council on some events that see particularly high traffic, and that is a known. That's not about forecasting. That's not about modelling. There is a network that exists to service that event today, and that's about pure substitution. So I think they're the use cases we've got to look at early, go after, get the data, and go from there. So.
Perfect. Thanks ever so much. Any other questions as well? Daryl, I thought you'd come up with one.
Is it about the bladder factor, Daryl?
Yeah.
Okay.
Daryl Swanson, EA Maven. So where's the power going to come from? We did our study last week, which came out. The UK would need about 2.7 terawatts of power to produce 53 million kilograms of hydrogen for RAM. We need 849 gigawatt hours of electricity for UAM. Obviously, the demand is in the city centres, the major populations, but that's also where we have the biggest problem getting power to. How are we going to power the system? What's your plan on trying to deliver that?
I'll take that first, Daryl, and then hopefully somebody can build on it. And I guess probably in the short answer, I don't know that, and I'm not sure anybody fully understands that problem yet. What I will say is what we're observing is it's very different in the different markets we're working in. I know there's areas of the UK that will particularly challenge. There's areas in the Middle East we're working in where that's not a challenge, getting power to site. So I'm not sure there's going to be a one size fits all. And it's also, to Addison's point and the earlier question, it's not going to be a zero to bang. I think it's, there's a realization I think that we all have to make, and that it is going to progress over time, as with the EV road market, for instance. So yeah, I don't think there's any silver bullet on that, unless Addison has something.
No silver bullet, but I do want to agree that it's super market specific, and then even site specific. I'm sure you would agree with that, and that it is possible that in some markets it could be a constraint. That is very possible. But also in the same way that the eVTOL industry is kind of riding the wave of the automotive EV industry, it's going to be similar here. Those grid upgrades that are required to then enable vertiports to be effective, well, they're going to be required for EV charging as well, or just other electrification that's happening more broadly. So it's another opportunity to ride the wave. It doesn't mean that it's going to be just completely easy or it's going to come free, but I do believe that will be helpful to the industry as a whole, and I guess I'm hopeful for that as well.
Yeah, and just to add to that, it's very market specific, and the markets I've seen are very successful with it. Make sure that the utility companies or utility organizations are part of the discussions early on, right? And so making sure that whether it's the transportation planning organization and the aviation departments that are looking into this, you also have the utility company in that discussion, so that they start getting a sense of what it's going to take to deploy and what the plans are, and start thinking through whether it's a constraint or not.
And I think to add to that, I think we're going to, we're viewing it in a traditional sense, I guess, talking about utility companies, and that's the status quo. That's the constraint today. I do think there'll be a disruption driven by the need to transition our energy irrespective of sector, and particularly in aviation. I think we'll see a disruption of where power is produced in our cities, and I think there's a great opportunity, and I guess I'm preluding to an event we've got tomorrow at the World Economic Forum. In terms of, I think we'll see airports become energy hubs and could be, form a different part of our society than they do today in terms of producing and distributing power. So it's not just about being constrained about the system we have today. I think we'll have to look to new things like that.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that question, and thank you for the question as always, Daryl, too. Is there any other questions? I think we've got okay. Yeah, Jeremy.
Fine. Jeremy Hartley, UK Civil Aviation Authority. So we're talking about people who love aviation. I mean, we're all here at Farnborough right now enjoying the aviation. What about those people who want nothing to do with it at all? You've got people living in communities who don't necessarily want a vertiport, or if they agree to have that vertiport in their city, they want to know it is 100% safe. What are you guys doing to promote that, as well as keep the public safe, especially the ones who want nothing to do with this at all?
I think I'd refer back to my earlier point, Jeremy, on that in terms of I absolutely recognise there'll be stakeholders who don't want to use the system and don't want don't want also to be close to the system. And I think looking for those, again, drones for good use cases and bringing our collective want and I don't like the term public acceptance. It's got to form a public demand. We've got we're not going to convince everybody, but we do have to move to a position where people want and they're seeing social benefits and economic benefits of these new forms of transport, which will hopefully create a pull as opposed to the public being pacified. We want them wanting, and I think there's some work to do to transition that. And as I say, I think those early drones for good use cases go some way to doing it.
Yeah, fully agree with those points. And, when we also say for everyone, it's not only the people who are flying it, but also what are the, as you mentioned, economic benefits that then this brings to having a vertiporting community, better connecting multi-center city metros, and better connecting people to other opportunities. If someone wants to live further where they could not commute in the past, and now they can take an eVTOL to work or to an education opportunity that they would not have in the past, how can that then better serve the community, have more jobs, more revenue flowing, and better connection to opportunities throughout the region as well?
Good question. I sort of go back to what I was talking about before with respect to just showing people. There are going to be sort of proof of concept markets, proof of concept routes, just whatever comes first, whatever's launched first. And those will be opportunities for people to see it, not in their community, perhaps, but to see it happening in real life. And we do fundamentally believe that it will create that demand, more of a pull. Will we convince everyone right away? No. I mean, every airport director I talk to in the U.S., for example, that every single one of them complains about how they get noise complaints all the time. So sometimes the nearby community will not immediately adopt, but we believe that there's so many benefits to AAM that they will see it as a net positive. I think some of these proof of concept, they're not actually proof of concept, but some of these launch markets will demonstrate to people just what those benefits are.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I think
it's useful just to put myself forward as an extra panel member at this point. But we've represented, my name is Charlie Morgan from Bista Motion. We're partnering with Skyports, and we have recent experience of putting in a planning application to have a vertiport based at Bista Motion. And we have just been through the process of stakeholder engagement with some of the local village and the town by Bista. And if you do explain it to them, then you get a lot of positive response, because a lot of what they experience now is traditional aviation, noisy, unsafe, and polluting. And if you can demonstrate to them that it's going to be quiet, net zero, and safe, with the ability and with also the prospect of their being able to access this, where the vast majority of people cannot access a helicopter ride, but the price point in the future for AAM is looking like it will be accessible to a wider market, then actually it's quite a powerful argument. And the people we've engaged with have been very positive in their response. I've got to say, though, we're waiting on the verdict from the planning department, and it has been a protracted process. And I think actually the stakeholder engagement critical for the next wave of the Future Flight Challenge is engaging with, yes, the public, but also the local decision makers.
Thank you very much for that additional insight as well, and best luck with the planning decision as well. Got our fingers crossed. I think we've got time, Campbell. We got one more question, I think. I'm not sure if we have. I know, Chris, you had a question yourself, so over to you.
Well, as Jason said, I can tend to bang the drum a bit over education, which I think is essential. And we've seen this already with Paris, and this danger that it seems that not a city might even fly. It's not because the actual craft itself, it's because of the ignorance of the people in power, the mayors, the councillors of Paris, who are going around saying that EV tolls are dangerous to the environment, they're polluting, they're noisy, and you think that this is crazy. You know, is this a purely political move, or is it because no one's told them anything about what this whole new industry is about? So my question to all of you is that, have you actually got plans set up for how you're going to go about educating the public? And B, if so, how much money are you going to invest? Because this to me is probably the most important thing.
Yeah, it's a good point to bring up Paris. That's an apt timing. Listen, I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but showing people in real life, I think there's no replacement for that. Paris might not be the right launch market, like for AAM. I think it very well probably isn't. There are certain markets that will embrace it as launch markets, and then I think eventually Parisians will see how it is successful in those markets, and that will demonstrate more so than a huge expensive public campaign at this stage in the industry, just that it can be beneficial to them. So I would just posit that we all wish that there weren't some of that pushback being leveled at the industry at the moment within Paris, but that given time, given success elsewhere, it will ultimately come back, and Paris will, I believe, have a thriving network eventually.
Only thing to add to that, Addison, is I think we talked a lot about this morning in terms of how we've all entered this market, etc. And I think we have to acknowledge that there will be failures, and we're going to learn. And I think not being close to the detail of the Paris situation, we have to accept that this may be looked back on as a mistake the industry made in terms of, did we get the engagement right with the local stakeholders and the local government in that instance, and hopefully I really hope it does go forwards, but if it doesn't, it will be a lesson learned for the industry that we'll all take forwards, and that's going to be natural in any emerging market.
Yeah, I just want to say it's a great question. I will give a US-based example of a really good point here. So if we look at Miami specifically, the public education is at all levels, right? If you wanted to have an operation at the city of Miami, you have the FDOT at the state level, Florida Department of Transportation, educated. The aviation department, they are supportive. Then you have the county, which then has 34 municipalities, which the city is one of them. You have the mayor of that county and the commissioners and the aviation department, transportation planning, educated and understood. And then you have the city of Miami mayor and their office and planning, all educated. to make sure they're supportive. And see, it's a lot of different levels. And if you wanted a route from that point to another part in Miami, guess what? That's a different municipality, a different mayor there that also has to be coordinated with the rest. So I don't have a number for you, but it is time and it is worthwhile effort. And the only way we're successful is if we coordinate at all levels and make sure we educate at all levels. And that's where it's also hopefully not only us alone. I mean, even in the eVTOL industry, there's not that many of us. And now that so many states want to talk sometimes, we're like, hey, Eve has it covered or Lilium has it covered. We're good. So it's important to also see how we can leverage local leaders who are passionate about it or state leaders to also be champions to increase coordination at all levels too.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I think that kind of just wraps up the conversation. So thank you everyone for your due attention and listening in as well, for all those who submitted a question as well. But lastly, a round of applause please to our guests here, JC, James and Addison. Thank you.